Dove jewelry pouch. First, here are the materials that you will need. For each piece of crepe listed, cut out the entire section of that color from the provided material. 4 types of crepe: red, white, pink, and orange. Some white lining fabric, some fusible interfacing, 2 full-sized patterns, some braided cord, 2 beads, a plastic case, some fiberfill stuffing, some sewing thread. Use thread in a color that will match the other materials. First, use scissors to cut around the outline of each of the full-sized patterns. Prepare the white, pink, and orange crepe and the lining fabric. Use a patchwork board when ironing or copying the patterns. The side with the fabric over it is for ironing. The rough side is for copying the patterns. Use a pencil to copy the rim fabric pattern 2 times onto the back of the white crepe. Cut them out without leaving any seam allowance for sewing. Copy the decoration fabric pattern 2 times onto the back of the pink crepe. Cut them out without leaving any seam allowance for sewing. Copy the beak pattern onto the back of the orange crepe. Cut it out without leaving any seam allowance for sewing. Copy the inner pouch pattern onto the lining fabric. Cut it out without leaving any seam allowance for sewing. Attach the fusible interfacing to the back of the white, red, and pink crepe. The rough side of the fusible interfacing has the glue on it. Place that side against the crepe and iron it on. Whenever you are instructed to use an iron, it should always be on a medium heat setting. Copy the body patterns and the tail front pattern onto the back of the fusible interfacing backed white crepe. Do not forget to copy the marks. Then cut each out, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance around them for sewing. Use a pencil to copy the left and right top wing patterns onto the back of the fusible interfacing backed red crepe. Then cut each out, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance around them for sewing. Use a pencil to copy the left and right bottom wing patterns and the tail back pattern onto the back of the fusible interfacing backed pink crepe. Then cut each out, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance around them for sewing. You have now cut all of the required materials. Now let's make the wings. Prepare the 2 top wing and 2 bottom wing pieces. Place 1 front and 1 back piece face to face and sew them together using a back stitch, starting from the mark for the opening you will use to turn the wing right side out. Skip a stitch over the tip of the wing and then continue sewing around to the other side of the opening. One wing is complete. Use the same process to create the second wing. Use scissors to clip the seam allowance around the opening and the curves. Fold the seam allowance around the wing tip down and to one side, then use the opening to turn the wing right side out. When you do this, use a straight pin to completely push out the corner that you skipped a stitch over. Work gently into the desired shape. Use the same process to complete the second wing. Now the left and right wings are finished. Now let's make the tail. Prepare the top and bottom pieces of the tail. Place the pieces face to face and sew them together using a back stitch, starting from the mark next to the opening you will use to turn the tail right side out. Skip a stitch over each corner and then continue sewing around to the other side of the opening. Clip the seam allowance around the curves and use the opening to turn the tail right side out. In the same way as with the wings, use a straight pin to completely push out the corner. Fold the tail in half with the top fabric on the outside. Use a running stitch to temporarily secure the opening. The tail is finished. Let's make the beak. Prepare the beak. Fold the fabric in half along the bias, then turn in both corners and fold in half again, folding a total of 4 times. This is easiest if performed using tweezers. Stitch the opening of the folded fabric in place. The beak is finished. Let's make the body. Prepare the two body pieces, the beak and the tail. Place the beak in position on one of the body pieces and stitch it in place. Then stitch the tail in place on the same body piece. Place the second body piece face to face with the first and sew together using a backstitch, starting from the tail and leaving the rim opening unstitched. Sew all the way around to the other side of the rim opening. Use scissors to trim away any excess from the beak. Use scissors to clip the seam allowance around the curves. Turn the body inside out. Work gently into the desired shape. The body is finished. Let's make the inner pouch. Prepare the fabric for the inner pouch. Fold the fabric in half face to face and sew the bottom and one side together using a running stitch. Fold down the seam allowances on one side and iron them. Make the miters. Fold the bottom corner into a triangle with the stitched seam in the center. Stitch perpendicular to the seam, a ½ inch from the point of the corner. The inner pouch is finished. Next, stuff the body with fiber fill. Prepare the fiber fill and the body. Start by stuffing the head. Tear the stuffing into large pieces and stuff it in while firmly shaping the head. Pin it in place with straight pins, filling the head and then the chest. Take into account the space needed for the inner pouch and do not put too much stuffing into the body. The stuffing is complete. Insert the inner pouch into the body. Line up the location where the rim fabric will be attached and the opening of the inner pouch, and stitch them together with a running stitch. Also use a running stitch to attach the left and right wings to the opening where the rim fabric will be attached. The stuffing with fiber fill and temporary attachment of the inner pouch and wings are finished. Let's attach the rim fabric. Prepare the two pieces of rim fabric. Fold both sides of one piece in 1/4 inch and sew using a running stitch. Sew the other piece in the same way. Attach the rim fabric to the rim opening on the body and attach using a back stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Sew the opposite side of the opening in the same way, using a back stitch. Fold the rim fabric twice, taking into account the space needed to pass the braided cord through, and sew in place using a blind stitch. Proceed to sew the opposite side in the same way, using a blind stitch. The rim fabric is complete. Next, let's attach the braided cord. Prepare the braided cord. Cut the braided cord in half to make 2 pieces. Using a bodkin, pass one piece of braided cord all the way through the opening in the rim fabric and out the other side of the opening. Pass the second braided cord through from the other side and complete a full lap. Now the second braided cord is also threaded through. Tie a knot at the ends of each braid. Use scissors to trim any excess braid left over from the knot. Finish the openings of the rim fabric. Push the openings that the braid was passed through together and use a whip stitch from top to bottom to close the opening. Pass the needle into the interior side and use a whip stitch there too. Sew a whip stitch on the opposite side in the same way. The braided cord is finished. Next, let's attach the decorations and the case. Prepare the 2 decorations and the case. Make a circle using a running stitch on each of the decorations. Have the thread come out the front side after sewing. Leave the thread without cutting it. Pull the running stitch thread tight and fold the edges inside. Place the knot of the braided cord inside the fabric and stitch around it while maintaining a round shape. Perform the same process on the other side. Next, place the case inside the inner pouch. Apply glue to the bottom of the case and place the case on the bottom of the inner pouch. The decorations and the case are attached. Let's complete the face. Prepare 2 beads. Mark the location of the eyes using straight pins. Use a double-threaded needle. Push the needle in at the location of one eye and bring it out at the location of the opposite eye. Pass one bead over the needle, then push the needle back through and out the other side. Pass the other bead over the needle, and then push the needle through and out the other side again. Pull the thread a little to sync the eyes. Make a knot. Insert the needle next to the knot and bring it out next to the bead on the opposite side. Pull the thread to draw the knot into the bead, then cut the thread close to the fabric. Add color to the cheeks using a pink-colored pencil. It can be blurred with a cotton swab to finish. Use straight pins to achieve the desired overall shape. The face is finished. This completes the dove jewelry pouch.